So let's start making this website responsive. This technique, well, there are many techniques to make the website responsive. There are many techniques to doing everything really on web development, but we're just going to focus on this way. I think it's, I suppose, a beginner-friendly way of doing things before you might want to look at more advanced techniques. So yeah, what we're going to use is something called media queries, which essentially is going to change the CSS layout when our screen is at a different size. So at the moment, it's doing the same thing for any size of the screen. And all it's really doing is squashing things together and moving things where we might not want them to go. So let's go through how we're going to fix this. So I'm going to move my sort of size of my window to about what we might expect a sort of phone screen size to be. Maybe something like that. Okay, obviously there's you know, other kind of development tools where you'll get these sort of exact sizes to do things exactly, but at the moment, we're just learning, so it's fine to do it in this way. But what do we need to do? So in terms of content in HTML, we're not changing anything, we're not taking anything away, we're not adding anything to the website. We want all this content still to be there. We just need to change the position of it at certain screen sizes. So we don't need to change the HTML at all. What we do need to change is all of the CSS. So everything really here to make it responsive is going to be in the CSS. So firstly, the first thing you notice is that this banner image, when we resize it, it's all squished. It just doesn't look good. So we want to stop it from doing that. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to actually just change altogether the way that we've added the banner. At the moment, we added the banner as an image, as a tag in HTML, as we kind of would add any image to the website. But what I'm going to do instead is add it as a background image, which is a bit of a different way of doing it. So actually, I've already said all that, and now I'm actually going to change the HTML. This banner here, the banner image, I am going to delete it from there because I'm not adding it in HTML anymore. I'm adding it in CSS. So you're actually adding content in CSS, really. And where am I adding that to? So where we've got banner here. So that banner IMG, we don't need that anymore. So we can go ahead and delete that. Okay, which if we save up, means that's gone entirely. So in the just.banner class, I don't think we really need to change the width and height. I'm going to leave that for now. And I'm going to add background image. Okay, and then what you need to do to add a background image, you need to type URL. One of those things I've never really understood, that you have to put URL because, it's not, I don't know. You have to put URL. And then the name of our image in brackets, which is banner.jpg. There's many things in, whenever you start doing things like programming and coding, is like you do a lot of things and you know that it's the way of doing it, but you don't necessarily know how to explain why. That happens quite a lot. But that's how we add a background image anyway. So if I look at that now, I can see that it's in there. Let's make it full screen again. There you go. But it's obviously like, it's not the scale that we wanted it as that it was before. So we need to change that. So we're also going to change the background size to, want it to none of them cover. And that should, yeah, there we go. It has it at the right size to the div box that we had it with. Okay, and you can already tell now that when I adjust the size of the screen that's being viewed on, it doesn't go all squished. Okay, which is great. Now, obviously, disclaimer, I suppose, if you were really doing this for a website, and then you were viewing it on a screen, you probably still wouldn't want it to be like how it was, because you're missing a lot of your image. And then that can be an issue if there's information on here that's important or whatever. So for us, it's not really too much of an issue in this instance, but it could be. If you were doing it like that, what you would probably need to do is actually, when you're viewing it at a different screen size, is to have a different version of that image altogether. All right, but that's a more complicated way of doing it. So we're just learning for now. This is fine. So it doesn't squish. You know, it's just an image to look nice. That's fine for what we want. Obviously, we've got issues, other issues going on, but for the banner, that's okay. All right, now what we want to add on now, come back up here. I'm going to write down to the bottom of my CSS. So this is where I'm going to add on all my media queries. Okay, so to add a media query, it's at media, and then in brackets, you want to add in what the minimum or maximum width that you want to be, you want your screen to be changing at. So I'm going to do a max width of 900 pixels. And I'm going to open curly brackets, and then sort of continues on like normal CSS here. So after the screen is no longer 900 pixels, so once it goes smaller than 900 pixels, these changes are going to take effect. Okay, and the first change we want to take effect to is our box 2, okay, which is, let's make it bigger, this stuff here. This is box 2 and box 3, if you remember. And we want it to remain float left. In fact, we want to keep it much the same, so I'm just going to put, I think that is the same as what it already is. Let's just do it this way. So it gets confusing. So you want it to be width 100% and height 60. Let's refresh that. Let's bring this down. So at the moment, we're not going to see much of a difference there. What I should probably start with is the image. So let's just put in another media query. This will make a bit more sense when we do this. So what I'm going to do here is change the box to image. Okay, and we want to change the width of that image to something smaller. So I'm going to make it, what is it now? Box to image 500 pixels. So maybe if I have it reduced down to 300 pixels wide. There you go. So when we get to that breakpoint, which is about here, the image changes size completely. All right. And the reason I've put width 100% over here is because I want that to no longer take up like half of the screen. I want it to take up the full length of the screen so that those two boxes of content are on top of each other rather than side by side. Okay, so that's why you've got 100% there and then a height value. Okay, so I want to do the same thing. So actually I'm going to copy all of that because I want to do the same thing to the other side, remember? So box 3, you'll be okay with float left as well. And then box 3 image. Let's just try that how it is. Yeah, so there you go. That's looking like 1,000 times better already. Look at that. So if we were viewing it, this website on the screen this size, which would probably be like a tablet size, that's absolutely fine already. We don't need to do anything else. So once the website gets to that break point, which is where those images start to squeeze together, that takes effect. And rather than them being side by side, we've got widths of 100%. So, and then they're both float left, so they are just both at the left on top of each other. Okay, and we change the image size down. All right, I've got a lot of padding going on, which has taken over from where they were before. So I want to actually get rid of some of that padding from these images. So it's an easy thing to do is just go padding 0, and then it will just, any padding will just be removed down to 0 on those images. same thing with that one. Let's have a look at that now. Or do we want, maybe we do want that there. So obviously this takes a lot of playing around with. We do want that there. To be honest, I'm quite happy with the way the bottom of this web page is looking now, the main content bit. If that was on mobile, that's fine. That'll be fine scrolling through. The issue we've got still is in the nav bar up here. So let's continue on. What do we want to change with the nav bar? So nav bar is going to have to be made a bit. We got it on the right hand side. Don't we want it now? We want it on the left, but we want it just underneath here neatly rather than, you know, not quite fitting underneath there. I'm going to have it underneath, but yeah, not neater than this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another media query. So I'll take my first line. And we want to change the, it's not a class, just the UL, okay, which was the bits in the nav bar, if you remember. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy what I already have. It's going to make life a bit easier, and then make the changes to what I already have. So that's what it is currently. So we still want a lot of this stuff there, but what we want, well, we definitely want that to then float left. And then our padding, we want to reduce down both of those. So we reduce that down to about 10, about 20. Okay. So it starts to get smaller. You can see when the breakpoint happens that it sort of snaps over to the left. You've got that float left, pushes it right over to the left there. So on a tablet then, it does look a bit weird. So maybe it wouldn't be the best for tablet, but we're just doing for mobile first. So that would be fine. But then obviously it doesn't go the full length. You've got this kind of weird gap here, which we don't want. So all we can do then is just add another thing here, which is width, and make the width 100%. And then that will just, you know, always be the full width of the screen, which is much better. Okay, yeah, I'm a bit happy with that now. So, you know, if it was a tablet, it'd be fine. It just jumps down to there. That's okay. I mean, we probably want that to be in the middle, but that's fine. In fact, actually, I will do that. So that's the, to remind myself of what that is the box 1 H1. So again, let's just copy a media query. And it's box 1 H1 that we want to affect. And then it should just be a case of going text align center. So that's always going to be in the center once it gets to smaller than that screen size. No, it doesn't want to do it. It's probably because it's still got float left on it. How can I get rid of that once it's there? There's no such thing as like float middle or anything like that. I just want float to be cancelled altogether. Let me just have a quick pause and see if I can work that out rather than just you watching me work things out. Spare me. Okay, well, I did a bit little investigation, and apparently there's a thing called float none, which will essentially just remove any of the floats, which I did do, and I'll show you the effect of that. So obviously now, if you look at that, the text is always in the middle. Once you get to that point, text is always in the middle there. Don't know if I necessarily like it that much, and there's other issues here where it's now too close to the top of the screen. And, so I don't know if I actually even like that. I might just cancel that for now. That's something that you could play around with if you wanted to. I think I'm more happy with it just being there. What I will do actually, because I know there's padding, or was it padding? Yeah, padding left. So all I will do is change the padding on that back to 0. That's going to be right up against the side. You can see how awkward this this process is. I'll just have to reduce it down to something like 15, maybe, so it's not right against the edge. Maybe 20. All right. Well, yeah. So there we go. So we now have a website that's much more responsive. So when I'm viewing it on desktop, it looks like this. Very nice. If I'm viewing it on like a tablet, it might be maybe something like this size. Not so great there. What you can do with media queries, obviously, we've only got this one breakpoint, or this one point where the CSS changes. Generally, if you're building for multiple devices, so tablet and mobile as well, then you would have another breakpoint. You might have like 900 and then 600 for mobile. But again, obviously the process just goes on and on. So I'm just kind of happy with that for now. If it was tablet, it'd probably be more like that kind of size anyway, I think. So, that would look fine. I'd be happy with that. And then we go down to like mobile phone size. And obviously I'm still kind of happy with that as well. The only issue mainly is the image, the banner image. You lose a lot of that information. But as I said, you could actually get it to change to a different image altogether if you wanted important information to be there. Which again, you would just use a different image and change that to something else. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense. And this is, if a lot of this stuff is like, what is going on here? This is getting a bit too much. It's really important that you understand the CSS in order to be able to do these media queries, because you're rebuilding the CSS again for a different screen size. So it's important to be comfortable with that before you go ahead and do this. If this has been a bit confusing, go back and keep practicing with the CSS again before you come back to this, and eventually you'll get it. But hopefully that makes sense, and just play around with yours. Try and making it responsive. If you really want to push yourself, you can make yours responsive with multiple of these breakpoints. And yeah, that's all for now.